Now, across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin.
I'm Greg Krugen in Houston.
And I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas, and this is Texas, the issue is.
It's game over for the Texas Lottery Commission. SB 3070 was a late addition to the legislative session before it ended earlier this month. Now, the bill filed by Edgewood Republican Bob Hall was in response to a controversy involving questionable lottery payouts. Now, a rule by the commission allowed buying lottery tickets online and the use of courier services to get them in bulk. Senator Hall made no secret that he wanted a total shutdown, but at the urging of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, he drafted his bill to keep the ping pong balls a-dropping, but under new management. I spoke to Hall about this political gamble to move the lottery to the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation and how this issue is not yet over.
Once you accept the fact that we're not going to shut them down, I think we're doing the next best thing in the way it's being reorganized. We have restructured that clearly prohibits them from having the courier operations, moving to using a telephone. We're going to go back to a paper slip interface so that you cannot have the high-speed buying, which enabled the theft that took place. And we don't actually know how many times it actually happened now. It was covered up so well. So by restructuring it, limiting it to a maximum of 100 tickets, maximum of $100 ticket in there, and having to buy it in a brick and mortar facility. We've gone back to the original legislation that basically said adults only. You got to be identity, so you know you're dealing with an adult, and your interface for the lottery ticket is going to be the paper slip, not an iPhone, not an iPad, and sold in brick and mortar locations that otherwise do other business, not the warehouses.
By moving it to the new agency, it still comes up for review in 2 years. Has this lottery game been set up to fail?
I don't think it's been set up to fail. I think what we'll see is it the proper thing to be doing? I mean, there are a lot of people who tell you gambling is not a core function of government, running a gambling operation. And running a gambling operation that we had, in which we had a criminal organization embedded in our government. This wasn't smart people from the outside figuring out how to beat the system. They may have worked with some smart people that told them what to do, so collectively, none of this could have happened in the April 2023, except for the fact that it was set up completely from within the Lottery Commission itself.
You made accusations that something criminal was going on. There are investigations that are happening, but are you worried that these investigations will just go away now that the issue in regards to moving the agency has been done?
No. The investigation of what went on is ongoing, and I do expect that something will come out of that in the end. It may be that the trail is cold enough that they have a hard time actually getting the evidence they need to pursue. But the main thing is the investigation, I think, has shut down that part of it. And we're moving into back to just buying the $1 tickets or the $5 tickets will make a big difference. What they were doing was bulk buying, where they were using a QR code that was developed by an outfit called Spinola in Malta.
Gaming the game.
Gaming the game is what they were doing, and set up so that they could buy 25.8 million tickets in 72 hours. And my concern is that happened. A lot of people saw it happening, knew it was happening, and didn't say a word about it.
Well, busted is a good word for that interview. Stephen, in a word, how do you describe what the senator had to say?
I wanted to say jackpot, but I'll leave it at jackpot. I'll explain it on the back end.
Okay, Greg, give me a word.
Rudy, my word, integrity, and believe me, it's increasingly elusive.
And with that, the Texas Trio will take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk about the issues facing the Texas Lottery after the legislature reshuffled the deck. Welcome back. Our issue is the restructuring of the Texas Lottery. Guys, the Lottery Commission is being shut down, but the game, it will live on under new management. I'm hearing SB 3070 was essentially a political compromise. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick taking a lot of heat over another social issue, his crackdown on the hemp product. So, Stephen, Patrick acknowledged people like playing the lottery. So was this more about avoiding double trouble, risking going bust on two really big political issues?
Definitely. That's why I use the word jackpot. Jackpot not in Senator Hall's standpoint, but for Dan Patrick, because he's not doing away with two, things that are popular among people who, whether you're Republican or Democrat, they're moving it to a different department. We'll have to wait and see if those reforms will actually make real changes. One of those big issues that they talked about all session in reference to trying to get rid of the Lottery Commission happened right up here in North Texas, where a company from out of the country bought $1 million $1 tickets, I think was the exact number. And so they want to make sure that there is trust in the system, and that's what it's all about. And so they hope that this change will do that.
Senator Hall called this restructuring the next best thing to a total shutdown. Essentially, it's just a temporary 2-year reprieve. But if you don't trust the game, you don't have a game. That's my thought. Greg, does the lottery survival hinge on future ticket sales under the new management? Or is this just buying time for lawmakers to just sharpen up the old axe?
Oh, Rudy, no axe, no guillotine, no executioner's sword. Even when budgets are flush with surplus, even the most prudent Texas lawmakers have no serious intention of walking away from billions in guaranteed profit delivered year after year like clockwork. And let's face it, if the economy turns south in a mild recession, that cash will become even more critical. So fellas, let's face it, the business of selling a little hope is now buried in the financial DNA of the Lone Star State. Now, whether the big grift was an inside job or not, the game goes on. Just like in Ocean's 11, they didn't shut down the casino because it got robbed. I think it's worth pointing out that there was other collateral damage, as in after the scandal broke, efforts to mash through sports betting or casino resort gambling, this session pretty much fell off the radar. Rudy?
Yeah, I'm a Frank Sinatra Ocean 11's guy, not necessarily the remake. Although the remake's pretty good too there. I got your reference.
The remake's
now, there's
good.
some strong accusations and denials about alleged illegal misconduct. Ranger investigations sometimes go into the big black hole, never amount to anything. Senator Hall indicated that having the investigation just in itself is a victory. He may be right about that. Restructuring the bill doesn't pass. Stephen, my sources say it's radio silence right now about this investigation. What are you hearing?
Yeah, and actually a couple of weeks ago, I actually talked to the person who won that $83 million ticket. We had to not show her face to protect her identity. She didn't want it released. But I spoke to her. She still has not been paid. And so there's collateral damage. And her lawyer told me basically, they can do this investigation, but she legally won it. She paid $20 on Jackpocket, which was legal at the time. She still has not been paid. She won that back in February? So yeah, they haven't heard anything on the investigation. Well, neither have we.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that lawsuit plays out. Greg, what's your bet on possible criminal indictments? Or, and could the casinos, we kind of talked about this, could the casinos play a role in all this?
Yeah, Rudy, my guess is scalps will be had sooner or later. Let me remind you, this is an old story with a new twist. Humans figuring out a way to steal from other humans. And frankly, we are collectively fascinated by the capers. Clearly, the criminal innovation here was high-tech, exploiting lackadaisical oversight that will almost certainly be corrected. Rudy, I happen to know you're a film buff, so you'll remember in Ocean's 12, Terry Benedict, the casino owner, got robbed, but eventually got the last laugh. So, all right, we're going to talk property taxes on the other side of this break. Welcome back. Another session, another surplus, another multi-billion-dollar round of so-called property tax relief. I say so-called because quite a few Texans felt like the historic rebate eventually delivered in 2024 got swallowed up by higher home appraisals and opportunistic local governments jacking up their rates. This time around, State Senator Paul Bettencourt insists those holes have been plugged and millions of Texans will actually feel the benefit. Let's start with a major increase in the homestead exemption up to $140,000, followed by even better news of $200,000 for seniors.
Yeah, this is off the charts exemptions for home and really for seniors and disabled homeowners across the state. We've got a 40% increase in the homestead exemption, which was a record. It's now a super record at $140,000. That's going to save 5.7 million homeowners $484 a year for as long as they own the home, or any home, because it's transferable. But wait, we're not done yet, because the over 65 and seniors get a whopping $200,000 aggregate homestead exemption, which means they're going to save $938 a year for as long as they own the home. But wait, we're not done yet, because a lot of them will pay zero ISD property taxes as supermajority.
Going to $200,000, our good friend Bill King says this really helps those seniors who live in a modest home and are on a fixed income. They're not going to pay school property taxes anymore.
You've been covering this for years, Greg. We've been working up to having a major push to really recognize the fact that if you paid a lifetime of taxes, you should have a break. So we've been helping all homes out. There's about 2 million seniors in the state, and they're going to be, most of them, a super majority of them, they're literally going to be paying no school taxes after this. And here's the good news. It's going to be in your tax bill in November. Silver-haired legislature said the average senior in the state, 80% of them, have only $36,000 of disposable income. So we're giving them back a bill, $1,000. And that's real money, because they don't have to pay taxes on it, and they get to keep that money.
Quickly, to all of those crazy people out there, and I'm sorry I'm calling you crazy, who want to completely abolish property tax in the state of Texas when we've already abolished the income tax. If we went to a one-pronged system with just state sales tax, what would it be?
It would be 22% for the state and 2% local. It would be 24% sales tax.
So a quarter on every dollar we spent.
Right. Which is impossible. People would be loading up their pickup trucks to Lake Charles, Ardmore, Oklahoma, Texarkana, Albuquerque, any place they could get to, Hobbs, New Mexico for that matter, any place they can get to buy, especially like washers and dryers. It's not a rational way to fix the problem, because you would have so much loss of sales revenue. And look, we put in $22.7 billion last session. This is $10 billion. We're really buying down property taxes. In fact, we're carrying $51 billion on the balance sheet right now, every biennium, and it would take $86 billion to wipe them out. So even the $25 billion we're doing a year now pales in comparison of how much you'd have to dig up to wipe out all taxes without a huge tax increase on sales tax.
Okay, guys, Betancourt says the higher homestead exemptions will be protected by appraisal reform measures set to take effect next year. Rudy, I'm guessing you're at least somewhat skeptical.
You know, Greg, I blew up my old Texas Instruments calculator a long time ago on this issue. The higher homestead exemption will certainly provide some people with much needed relief, especially for seniors on a fixed income who, are getting taxed out of their homes. But, let's face it, I'm a broken record on this. Everything that's done to date still looks like a temporary Band-Aid on a gut wound. As long as the system is built on setting the tax rate based on a guess on what you might be able to sell your property for, local governments are going to find a way to pick your pocket and get around everything that Betancourt has done. Increasing public representation on appraisal district boards, good move, but it has only limited positive results so far. Closing some of the other loopholes, good move. Bottom line, it's just hard to kill that cash cow, especially in a time when traditional, physically conservative Republicans are labeled as rhinos, Greg.
All right, Rudy. Stephen, Betancourt and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick believe boosting the homestead exemption is the best method, better than any other method of property tax relief, because it delivers a benefit to literally millions of homeowners, and with the hefty increase for seniors, helps prevent the most vulnerable from being taxed out of their homes. This latest bill, which passed with overwhelming bipartisan support, was signed in North Texas, or will be. You getting any reaction?
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is I'm getting a reaction from, people my age. Sorry, I'm a little younger than you guys, but a lot of people my age are first-time home buyers and starting to buy their homes. And as of yet, just because hearing from like coworkers, people that we work with saying, oh, this doesn't help me, this doesn't help me. I think everything is good. And it's bouncing off of what Rudy said. I think some people still aren't seeing the true impact of it. This package is different. It does provide more of a safety valve for senior citizens who are on a fixed income. So I think we'll have to wait and see. Everyone's for paying less, right? And so I think voters will approve that the portion that has to go to the voters in November. And as the lieutenant governor said, this will not be budget contingent. This is something that is being changed in the Constitution. And so it's permanent regardless of if the surplus is $50 billion or $10 billion. And so we'll have to wait and see. But I've heard a lot of frustration from first-time home buyers saying that things cost a lot of money.
Indeed they do. Rudy, the running tab for property tax relief is now north of $50 billion. And I suspect you have some reservations about the ongoing commitment, given these monster surpluses are forecast to drop considerably.
Yeah, there goes my calculator again. Several of my legislative contacts have noted that this past session was probably the least physically conservative session in decades here in Texas. A lot of money was spent by state lawmakers, a lot of Republicans doing that. And the bill could grow with things like this new private school scholarship program that's marketed as school choice. If Trump's big, beautiful bill fails to deliver, the tariff strategy backfires, the Fed doesn't provide a substantial rate cut, we better hope that the price of a barrel of oil hits $200 and only has been as high as 147. And even then, the budget cutting acts will probably still have to come out in 2 years. And the question is, what essential state programs are going to get chopped? Greg Abbott, a few days ago saying he wants his political muscle to flex to force lawmakers to do more property tax reform, ramping up that idea that we talked about on this consumption tax format idea. Woof. Could be bad timing for that, Greg.
All right, Stephen, Betancourt laid out the apocalyptic numbers involved with abolishing all property taxes, and yet the drumbeat from hyper-conservative activists persists. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, our guest last week, Brian Harrison, who's from up here in North Texas, talked about what Rudy said about a lot of money being spent, and him talking about saying that basically a part of the interview that I don't think we were able to use of him saying that surplus should have been given more back to the taxpayer. And so, yes, we have this ultra conservative wing now, and that's a recurring thing. That's nothing new, but the things that they have been focused on are pushing Republicans to try to do more or be more under the spotlight and in criticism, when a lot of these Republicans who they're calling rhinos are not rhinos. So, yeah, we'll have to sort things out, Greg, but that group is still a small group that is pushing for eliminating the tax altogether.
All right, Stephen, take us to the next segment.
Yeah, all right, when we come back, we've got issues. Find out what they are. All right, it's my favorite segment. No shade to the politics, but my favorite segment. We've got issues, and this one may be a little, I don't know, a little touchy. All right, so my issue is consistency. As of this taping, Thursday, Governor Abbott announced that he was deploying 5,000 troops and 2,000 DPS troopers to assist with protests across the state. Now, I'm all for law and order. I get it. But the consistency is, and we are taping this on Thursday, just full transparency, this airs on Sunday. Did the governor deploy troops when we had massive George Floyd protests across Texas? I don't think he did. So I just want the governor to be consistent. He's following the playbook of Trump, which I get, but it just seems like catering to the base to me, guys. Greg, what's your issue?
Stephen called me old-fashioned. I hate to see people tearing other people's stuff up to try to make a point. I mean, whether it's taxpayer property, whether it's private property, it's just flat wrong. And guess what? When people see images of that, they're not paying attention to your issue. You're gaining no sympathy. You're gaining no new support. So, I'm for zero tolerance of that stuff. You tear somebody else's stuff up, you go to jail. All right, Rudy, that's my take.
Yeah, I'm going to build off of both of what you guys said. First of all, with you, Stephen, I think the difference this time, Stephen, is that, and I was embedded in a lot of the protests here back in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd protest. The individuals tried to burn down City Hall here in Austin. The individuals they ran through the barricades at the state capitol and caused a lot of damage at the state capitol. This time is different, I think, in that lessons learned by authorities saying, look, we support peaceful protesting, but we're not going to do this all over again. My issue with all of this is that with all these kids protesting and adults protesting and being throwing damage and causing problems like this, we're missing an opportunity to really sit down and talk about real immigration reform. We missed that opportunity in the first Trump administration, where the left refused to sit down and talk and negotiate with the great negotiator, and we're doing it again. They're doing it again. This is a prime opportunity to really bring about great reform, and my issue is they're not doing it and not taking advantage of the opportunity. And with that, we'll end it on that note. Now, you can see this and our other issue interviews on our YouTube pages.
Yeah, and keep the conversation going on social media.
And Governor Abbott is still on the clock. Will he veto or sign certain key bills? We'll talk about possibly one that he signed when you join us same time, same place next week. And don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.